are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, Wanderers. Welcome. It's a Wednesday night. It's time to Soul Wander. We are hosted here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, your number one paranormal and alternative talk network. And you can find out more about me, AJ, your host, by visiting kgradb.com or soulwanderings.com. I'm up to all kinds of goodness. I am completely passionate, and my life purpose is to assist others in their human experience, in their journey of life, in their healing of trauma, if their healing of heavier experiences in life. And so tonight is one of my favorite topics that we are going to dive in deep with. And I'm really excited to have our guest tonight because we are going to be talking about death and dying. And it's something that each and every one of us will experience at some point. And all of us have questions about the end of our lives and what happens and where we go and what's that experience like. And everyone has an opinion on it. And tonight we are going to hear the experiences and opinion of someone who has researched this topic for decades. Tonight, our guest is William Peters, and he's a recognized global leader in the field of shared death studies. He's spent decades studying end-of-life experiences and grief, and he shares his personal experiences and other profound stories and groundbreaking research of shared journeys to the afterlife to lessen your fears over death and dying, transform your grief, and open you up to the incredible possibilities of what can occur at your life and beyond. I think I had a typo. William is the founder of the Shared Crossing Project and director of its research initiative, and he is also the author of At Heaven's Door: What Shared Journeys to the Afterlife Teach About Dying Well and Living Better. William, thank you for being here and welcome to Soul Wanderings.
Thank you, AJ. Great to be here.
Thank you. Well, great topic. I am glad that there are people like you in the world who are not afraid of discussing this topic, because it seems like, especially in America, we are terrified of this topic. We're terrified of the thought of dying. We're terrified about the thought of living. We are conditioned in so many ways, so differently than other places in the world. So people like you who bring this into awareness and provide a safe place for us is exactly what is needed. So thank you for showing up and being you and sharing your time and research with us tonight.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that your audience is interested in this topic. I mean, I know you cover a lot of topics, but like you said, the topic of death and dying is one that creates a good deal of aversion, I should say. People just, I as a therapist in end of life and grief and bereavement, I often find that people will talk about death and dying, end of life, as something that's just out there. That's like they want to deal with it as, yeah, of course I know it's going to happen. But just not now. And with that safe distance, they really miss the opportunity to learn about what actually does happen in an end of life and death and dying experience. And the truth of the matter is, I'm not unlike the rest of the researchers, either in near-death studies or afterlife studies, who all the data that we collect suggests that where we're going next is far more desirable, far more meaningful,
Mhm.
and essentially benevolent and full of love. And so where we're at right now has a real purpose to it, but we really culturally have it backwards in terms of what we should be afraid of.
I couldn't agree more. I've had my own experiences about 10 years ago, and my whole perspective on life has changed. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, as traumatic as it was at the time. So awesome now because I look at life completely different. Not that I want everyone to have an experience like mine, but thank you for the wake up call. Did you have a experience that led you down the road of wanting to research in more depth into this topic, or was it just something you were drawn to naturally?
No, I mean, I was myself reluctant to go into this field, but it took a number of experiences, painful experiences, quite frankly, and life-threatening that got me to where I am now, and certainly where I made a big decision for my work life, my professional life, about 20 years ago to really head in this direction. But I'll start at the beginning just to give you and your listeners a context.
Perfect.
I was living a kind of a mainstream life in San Francisco Bay Area. Would go up to Lake Tahoe and ski with friends and family. And on one of these occasions, between Christmas and New Year's, I was 17 years old. I went up skiing, and I had a really bad fall, and I broke my back, and I sailed out of my body. At the moment of impact, what I remember is that everything went dark. But as I've looked at this, and I've looked at it many times through the years, what is so compelling about that going dark was that in that moment of impact, everything went just kind of like zoop, boom. All the energy left my body. Everything was silent, but I had an observing self there that was watching everything. So I watched the light leave my body. I watched myself go into darkness. And then in that darkness, I just was comfortable. And I eventually rose out of that darkness in a certain way. And as light began to illuminate my visual field, I saw my body on the ground, in the snow, basically.
Wow.
And I was moving away from it gradually. And then I was moving away, very comfortable, very much at peace, not feeling the pain of a broken back in that ski slope. I saw beautiful Lake Tahoe, San Francisco Bay Area, Colorado Rockies, continental U.S. or North America, and eventually a satellite view of the United States, satellite view of planet Earth, and then a beautiful cosmos, all of which was enthralling to me. And as this was happening in the background, I noticed, oh, wait a minute. There is a review of my life going on for the first 17 years, and I'm getting a lesson on karma. Like everything that I had done, said, or thought was recorded and being played out for me to see the effect, if you will, of my action, speech, and thoughts on people. And in many of occasions, and perhaps the ones I noticed most, was that those are situations in which I caused others harm. And so it was a karmic lesson, very spiritual, to say, oh, wow, we don't get away with anything in that human life. But here again, I'm still moving out, in through the solar system now. And in the distance, I see a pinprick of light that's fascinating to me because it's just so brilliant and luminous, and it's calling me, and I get a sense that I'm moving towards it. And I'm in a tunnel now eventually. And I'm looking through this kind of milky tunnel that's kind of slinky, milky, and it's winding a bit, but the light is at the end of it. The light's getting bigger. And then at some point I realized, oh, I'm dying. And I've been here hundreds, if not thousands of times before. So I remembered this space after a human life. And at that point, I screamed and said, looking at the light, God, don't let me die. I grew up Catholic, so that light to me was, the creator God. And I screamed and pled with that light. And which is also very unusual. I know your viewers are very sophisticated, so they know this is a near-death experience. And unlike most near-death experiencers who are quite content, relieved, and happy to stay in the afterlife in this space, I was like, no, I want to return. My thinking was, I don't want to go back to a human life and have to do childhood again to get about my kind of work or curriculum in this life. So I entered the light very much at peace. And I said to God, hey, I really want to go back. You got to send me back. Nothing came of that conversation initially, but I was getting more and more comfortable with the blissed out feelings. And then at some point I felt a push on my body and I started heading back away from the light and towards planet Earth. And I had this sense, I'm going back. And I said, thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I heard, or I didn't hear it, it was a telepathic delivery or communication, make something of your life. So that really struck a chord with me. I thought, make something of your life. What does that mean?
Right.
Well, that has stayed with me since that accident now, almost 4 decades ago. So I did obviously come back to my body, and it was a painful reentry to that body. And I would live with a broken back and chronic pain for, many decades. I'm significantly better now. But that's a whole nother story. Still have a great vulnerability there. But that was my first experience, AJ. That was it, where I had that experience and I was just like, there's a lot more going on here. Now, I didn't think about that experience in any intentional way that I can remember for a long time. I mean, I think it was maybe about 5, 6, 7 years later, I was visiting my parents and watching television later at night, and I was channel surfing, and I saw something come up on the screen that said rib tunnel, beautiful light, at peace. And I thought, oh, wow. And I turned back to the tunnel, turn back to that station, and I realized, oh, this guy has had what I had. And that was the first time I had ever heard anybody share an experience that I had. So then I learned kind of what this experience was, the near-death experience, something that Raymond Moody had popularized with his book Life After Life in 1975. So that's how I got into this. And I would have many more experiences. I'd have a second near-death experience, which I can detail at some point in our time together. But I think what also happened was after that, I developed a capacity to be more intuitive and to be more in touch with people's psychic, spiritual selves. So when I was around people who were dying, I tended to have a real connection with them in a certain way and their experience. And I was just very, very interested and curious. I actually worked in Central and South America after college. And when I was there happened to be in Guatemala and Peru, there were civil wars in each of those countries. So I was around a lot of death and dying and a lot of suffering. And so, I mean, it wasn't like I was seeing death all the time, but it was certainly more available and accessible than anything I'd ever experienced in my Western life. So there I had one experience I'll share just because it was what I call a gateway for the whole shared death experience field, if you will. And so here I am, coming back from an afternoon or a day on the beach with some of my friends in Peru. And we lived about an hour inland. So we were coming back in the evening time. It was dark. It was summer, so the asphalt on the road was very, very hot, and you could sense that, you could see kind of the moisture evaporating, and you could just have that kind of, I don't know, that blurry feeling you get when you see heat coming off of a surface, especially water. So we're driving back, and we see something on the road. And then we look closer and we go, oh my God, that is a body, a human body. And, in this part of Peru, it was not safe to stop for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's a fake and they're just trying to get the car to stop so they can rob it. There's also lawsuits. If you stop and the authorities come, they'll blame you for the accident. All sorts of problems they could emerge. But I was really fixated. I said, no, we're stopping. I'm getting out. So we stopped. We were getting out. There were 6 people in the car. I got out, ran over to the body, took a pulse. There's a pulse. Checked for breath. No breath. So I started giving mouth to mouth. And as I started giving mouth to mouth, all of a sudden I felt a gravitational pull on my body. I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? And then I felt these presences descend upon me. And I'm like, I'm in an altered space here. I mean, I can say that now. At that point, I was just like, wow, something's happening here. And I'm just focused on and getting this guy's heart breathing again. Soon we put him back in the back of our car and we take him to the local hospital, which is a half an hour away. And I'm doing mouth to mouth the whole time. And these presences are with me. And they're basically saying to me, you're doing well here. They're affirming me. They're not like speaking. I'm getting this sense of love and support and compassion. And I don't know what to make of this other than I'm going to keep doing this because I'm feeling supported. We drop him off at the hospital. We didn't stay the night. I mean, we live 5 minutes from the hospital. So we dropped him. I came back the next morning. And they said he suffered severe head injuries. I gave blood, and they were going to hope that he could get conscious at some point. And then he dies. And they announced this on the second morning when I came in. They said he died a few hours ago. I thought, oh, wow. I mean, I knew he was going to have severe brain damage, but I don't know what I was hoping for, but so when I heard that he died, I went outside, sat in the courtyard, and there again, these beautiful spirits, I will call them spirits because I don't know what else to call them, kind of descended upon me. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling their affirmation, their love. I started weeping. I just started weeping. It was so beautiful, these sublime feelings. And I got this sense of gratitude from this experience. Like I was feeling like, job well done, William. Thank you for caring for this guy. Now, I can't say that I actually saw spirits. I can't actually say that I saw the individual in spirit who had died. The man was a campesino, as we call it, a man of the fields, an agrarian worker. And so I, called him campesino. And I can't say that I saw him, but I certainly felt and sensed something. Now, this is not a huge SDE, shared death experience. But it is in the realm of our typologies on shared death experiences would be sensing and feeling death-related phenomena. So it's in there, but it would not be in my top 100 or even 200 of remarkable, spectacular shared death experiences, which I'll share with your audience. So, I would have another NDE, which I can go into later. But really the important thing is I started working in hospice and Zen Hospice Project in San Francisco.
Wow.
And it was there that I started having these experiences. One in particular, I'll share, AJ, because it's really succinct. And so I am reading with a patient who is on hospice, dying very soon. His name is Ron. He is unresponsive. So he's just prone in his bed. He has not responded in quite some time. And so I'm reading to him. We always read in hospice because we know that hearing is the last sense door to go offline. So I'm reading to him, and all of a sudden I pop out of my body, and I'm hovering above my body and Ron's body, Ron being prone in the bed. And I look to my right, and there's Ron. He's right next to me. I mean, he's just right there. And he's smiling at me as if to say, check this out, William, check this out. And I'm like, wow, this is really something. But I'm also kind of comfortable with it because I'm remembering like, oh, I think I've been here before. Like I know this space. So that was my first shared death experience. And just so we know what we're talking about here, a shared death experience occurs when somebody dies and a loved one, caregiver, or healthcare provider, even an innocent bystander, reports that they feel like they shared in the journey with the dying into a benevolent afterlife. And we hear benevolent all the time, just like a good afterlife. Right. So I'm not adding that. That's a necessary adjective. And so they basically have some sort of sensorial experience or experience of accompaniment that leads them to enter into this afterlife state. And the afterlife state has the same features and phenomena that we see in the near-death experience. So the most common feature for the experiencer, caregiver, loved one, typically, is that they see the dying moving along, progressing along this journey into a beautiful afterlife landscape. They also see elevated spirit beings or guides about 17% of the time. About 13% of the time, they'll see other deceased loved ones. About 25% of the time, they'll see a brilliant light that's very similar to the NDE. And that light may be, off in the distance, or it may be in the form of a cylinder or column or something that they travel up. Ascension is a dominant theme, as is journey. There's always seems to be this sense of journey and moving forward. And the dominant phenomenological experience is one of love and understanding and all that those bring with them. So for love, it's those feelings of gratitude, compassion, curiosity, heart openness, trust, belonging. Really beautiful terms we hear. We often hear people say, I just felt like I was part of everything. I just felt like that was my home. I just belonged there. Really beautiful. These are the best feelings that people can have that we're aware of. Mm-hmm. And the relationship is really key. The bond between the experiencer and the dying creates the bridge to the experience. And that doesn't mean you just have to know the person very well. It can just be like me picking somebody up on the side of the road and having this bond right there, instant connection, instant trust, instant gratitude, instant love experience. So that's the definition of the shared death experience. And we can go into it more in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for defining a shared death experience. We've talked a lot about NDEs here. I can't recall a time where we really dove into an SDE. So this is going to be really neat. New territory for me. I've heard of them. I've heard stories about them. I've read about them. Never have experienced one. So learning more about them is really interesting. And I'm glad we're going to learn more about them. And we're going to do that after this first break of the night. So we'll get this out of the way and thank our sponsors. And we'll be right back here in just a moment.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are you looking to go on a faraway journey that is magical and mysterious, reaping on mystical legends? If so, then Mysterious Adventure Tours is perfect for you. Imagine a voyage to explore ancient mysteries of Ireland, haunted majesties of Scotland, or their chilling Birth of the Vampires in Romania. These small, esoteric getaways are limited and do fill up fast. So, go to MysteriousAdventureTours.com and book your trip soon.
Hi, I'm Austin Butler from Baz Luhrmann's new film, Elvis.
Tomorrow, all of America will be talking about Elvis Presley.
As a blood donor himself, Elvis shared the gift of life with patients in need and asked others to do the same. We're encouraging you to give blood this summer. Please visit redcrossblood.org/Elvis movie today to learn more.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back. We are wandering tonight with William Peters. He is the author of At Heaven's Door, What Shared Journeys to the Afterlife Teach About Dying Well and Living Better, amongst a bunch of other things, which we'll get to tonight. William, welcome back.
Thank you.
That was a lot to take in, the first little break or first little section that we had of the show. So good. Thank you for opening up and sharing these really intense and beautiful moments with us. Shared death experiences are quite a phenomenon I am fascinated with. And with you having had several and all of the research that you've done, you have quite a bit to share with us about them. And also NDEs, which is another topic that is near and dear to my heart. So thank you for showing up and being here with us once again. I'm going to thank you a million times. Just know that. I have so much gratitude to my guests because I know it takes a lot of energy to do shows like this time and time again and share the same stories time and time again and still be passionate about them. And I don't take that for granted. So I just want you to know that I'm in so much gratitude for you. Shared death experiences. We'll refer to them as SDEs, everyone. So if you're wondering what the SDE is, that is what it is. Why do some people have these experiences, the SDEs, and some do not?
Boy, that is the holy grail of our research.
I bet, because I mean, it would be really neat to have that experience, but it's not something you get certified in, like Reiki or viewing or something.
You know, it's when I first started the research project, it just tells you what my thinking was. I thought that once I introduced the experience, which, you know, Raymond Moody had done in his book, Glimpses of Eternity in 2010, I thought once the topic got out there, I would just teach people how to have it because I had developed methods and to facilitate them. And the methods were really about kind of normalizing that these experiences, these SDEs, and other shared crossing experiences, and the shared crossing experiences, other experiences related to death and dying, having to do with pre-death visions and visitations, post-death visions, visitations, synchronicities, post, pre-death, and at time of death. All of these experiences I was tracking in my research, and created a whole spectrum of these experiences, which I thought, and well, it's true actually, this spectrum has been the subject of a research paper that was published in Omega Journal of Death and Dying, and now is used with healthcare providers and death educators and what have you, to really let people know what are the possible spiritual experiences at the end of life. So it's been very well received. But the reason why I'm going up into this, sharing this, is because I just assumed that people would hear about these experiences, see the research on it, and want to have them, and I would teach them how to have them. Well, my teaching would be this, and is that the first thing you have to do is accept these experiences happen. Because once you accept these experiences that they happen, then if you start having some phenomena, rather than go, wow, something weird happening here, you can say, oh, wait a minute. This is the beginning of a vision or visitation or a shared death experience. And you allow it in. You don't get your cognitive brain in the way to block the experience. You actually do the opposite. You lean into the experience and you allow your cognitive brain to go to sleep. So that was the first step, was, and there's 3 steps in this, is to get people to accept that these experiences exist by just reading the literature and knowing that they indeed do happen with far greater frequency than our general public realizes. And then the second step is to really prepare yourself psycho-spiritually and emotionally for death itself. Mm-hmm. And that means you do things like life reviews, and you find your regrets, and you find your unfinished business, and you go through steps of compassion for yourself and others, for those you've harmed and those who have harmed you. Do some forgiveness work. Move through a state of accepting your deeper humanness and in a state of love and support for yourself and others. And you eventually come to a state of gratitude for the gift of living, and accepting that death will come. And as you come into a relationship with this reality that death will come, then the step is to do this type of engagement, this honest integrity, if you will, around death and dying with your loved ones, and to say something like this, either, I love you, we spent a good life together, we have a lot more time left, hopefully, but at some point, either you are going to die or I'm going to die in our relationship. And we should really be talking about that. Like, what do we want around end of life? How do we come into peace with this? So those are all the steps of what I call, preparing for a conscious, connected, and loving end of life experience. And the third part of, when I work with people is, and this is quite exciting, is that I teach these methods where the person dying learns how to, and essentially stay connected to their loved ones if they want to. And if they come apart, disconnected as they move through that energetic boundary of the earth plane, they will be taught methods for how to reconnect with their surviving loved ones, so that they can bring them, essentially pull the surviving loved ones into the afterlife space and show them where they are and show them that they're safe, well cared for, and happy. So that's how I started. And since then, that program we call Pathway Program, and people can take it online. You can look at my website if you're interested. But the point of it is, I was really fascinated in teaching people how to have these experiences. Mm-hmm. But actually what I realized was our culture still hadn't accepted these experiences, and certainly not our healthcare community. So
right. They want us to live.
Exactly.
They'll give us all the things to help us die, like the medications, but they really, really force the issue of making us uncomfortable with machines and all the kinds of things.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So I realized that I needed to substantiate the shared death experience in the medical literature as a phenomena that occurred with great frequency and required clinical skills and know-how to help people recognize if they've had the experience and to help people process and integrate the experience.
Wow.
So that's how I started the research. And we, my team, the Shared Crossing Research Initiative, which I direct, just published in December of 2021 in the American Journal of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, which is one of the leading journals in the world. So this has really substantiated the SDE, the shared death experience, to the healthcare community, especially those who work in end of life. And now that it's been recognized in literature, healthcare facilities, particularly hospices, have to include this in their treatments, have to recognize this as legitimate because all of our work is peer reviewed. Mm-hmm. So once again, this substantiation of the SDE is part of my ongoing mission to raise awareness and educate people about these spiritual experiences that happen at the end of life, the shared death experience being kind of the paramount experience, the experience that's most desirable. So that's what we've done. And now we're seeing interest in the SDE proliferate across the society. And not that the medical communities are setting up protocols to deal with the SDE, but what is happening is, like most things, the change process in medicine happens not because doctors change things, happens because patients come in and demand that these experiences be honored. And that's what we're seeing, is that people are coming in and literally either handing them my book, or something to say, listen, this experience happens. I know it. It's validated in the research. I want your staff to know that I want to have this happen with my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's so fantastic that you are in the efforts along with several other people who are bringing this to our awareness, because we have been so good at just sweeping the topic of death under the rug and not looking at it, even though it's a very real experience that we have as human. And we're taught to fear it. We're taught that there are different, every religion's going to teach something different. So that's a whole other thing, but we're taught so many negative things about dying that we're so terrified of doing it. And so having it bringing it to the light and having these conversations with our loved ones is so important. It's so needed. And I feel like the more we talk about it, and I'm sure you've seen this, the more comfortable people become with talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, most people have social fear around talking about death. They're going to think that somebody thinks that they're weird or that, why are you bringing that up? It's so painful, so, but the truth of the matter is, in my experience, people really enjoy talking authentically about subjects that are important, and death being one of them. So as people get more language and understanding of death itself, it's getting easier and easier to talk about.
Right. And that's great. I have noticed that even in the circles that I'm in, but I also work with a grief coach, someone who assesses people through death and dying as well, just a little different than you. It's a topic we have every day, but as someone, excuse me, I don't know what's going on today, but as someone who could be in a situation where they are looking at death in a very real way, say they have a disease, they know that their term is coming up or whatever that looks like, how do these experiences work for them? How do these conversations, because let me go back. The reason why I ask, because I have a couple of people in my life who it's a reality for them right here and right now, but I observe them making everyone else around them comfortable, even though they are the ones that are looking at end of life. And so how are those conversations initiated? How can they have a more comfortable and productive conversation with those around them so that their end of life is their experience and not something they're creating for someone else?
Yeah, good question. Well, my first response is, there is nothing normative about talking about death and dying.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to want to pick your people to bring it up with purposefully. So I would say that, if you want to bring it up, I think you bring it up like this to a good friend. There's something I want to talk to you about. And you may think this is a little bit strange, but I've been thinking about this topic for quite some time, and I'm just wondering what you think about it, because I value your opinion and I value you in our friendship. And, if you're really good friends, you can say, and I'd like to talk to you about it because I may, want you to help me around death and dying, or I want you to know that if you need help, I want to be there for you. And so then you just bring it up. The topic I want to talk to you about is, end of life, death and dying. What happens? What do we need? So, and of course, people will have personal questions about their relationship with death and dying and what they need or what they feel their friends will need. But that's the first way to talk about death and dying. But keep in mind, I focus more, AJ, on, I do all that. I help people connect and prepare for conscious, connected, and loving end-of-life experiences. But most of my work is with people who've had the experiences, these spiritual end-of-life experiences, and I help them integrate them into their lives. I help them therapeutically to understand what they went through, to affirm what they saw, and then to say thank you to the experience and lean right into it, because then you see significant life changes. People do not typically, put it this way. People tend to make major changes after these experiences because they realize life is short and they need to get about pursuing the purpose of their life.
Right. It's crazy how we come to realize how short life is. And it doesn't happen until we have something major happen in our life. We take for granted everything that we have and just our bodies in general. And then one day we have an experience that causes us to realize just how short and precious this life is.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's one of the after effects of having a shared death experience is people come back to their human life and say, life is short. I got to get about pursuing my purpose in this life.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think SDEs and NDEs are taboo topics? Is it just because it's related to death, or is it because people may think it's woo-woo or not real? Like, why are we not talking about these experiences?
Well, that once again is a very astute question. I think for one thing, the SDE, let's put this, the NDE, near-death experience, has now gotten a lot of attention. I think people can more readily talk about the shared death experience, the near-death experience than they can the shared death experience, because the near-death experience is kind of a known meme in our culture now. Now, it wasn't 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now it's really taken off. So you'd be hard-pressed to talk to somebody who hadn't at least heard of a near-death experience or at least knew the definition of it. So yeah, the SDE is different. The SDE still isn't very well known. I mean, I think, I've been told that my book is doing a good job in getting the word out because it's a general public book. And the publisher is quite, skilled at Simon & Schuster. So it's getting a lot of play, if you will, a lot of reviews, a lot of press coverage. So it's coming out slowly, but still the vast majority of America has no idea what a shared death experience is. Where I would say it's the reverse for the near-death experience, I think maybe not the vast majority. Well, no, I'd say the vast majority. I would say definitely the vast majority of people know about the NDE. Not everybody, but they would know something about it. So to answer your question directly, how do you have these conversations? I think somebody who wants to talk about them just needs to go to a friend and say, I want to talk about this. Now, I think you may be surprised by what you find. I think, in my experience, most people like talking about these subjects.
Yeah.
They just looking for the permission to do so.
Yeah. And I think in our culture, especially in the last few years, people are talking more, people are sharing their truth more. And in doing so, these topics are becoming more mainstream than behind the curtain. So that is awesome for people like you and yourself who are doing this type of research because of the importance of it. The SDEs aren't, like I said in the beginning of the show, they're not as well talked about. They're not out there being shared. And one of the big questions that I had when I found out that you had your own SDE was, and with with someone that you were caring for or cared about, what does that leave you feeling like after having that experience with them, where they are now transitioned or crossed over and you're here still?
Well, I mean, you still have grief, of course. Anytime you lose a loved one, you're going to experience grief. What we find in the shared death experience is people who have the SDE around the time of death of somebody, they will know that this is what we see in the research. They will, about 80 to 90% of our respondents say that the SDE delivered to them a sense that their loved one or friend is alive and well in a benevolent afterlife. That's the first after effect. The second one is that they believe that they'll be reunited again with their loved one. Well, that's quite powerful because that changes the way you grieve, which is the third one, which is the third after effect, which is people, they still grieve the loss of their loved one, but not in the same way they did. In other words, they know that they'll see him again or her again, and they know that that person is alive and well. So that's a good experience. And because of that, the grief doesn't have the huge dips that we see in most types of grief. You still have loss, but it's leavened somehow. It's leavened. So yeah, I think, did I answer your question there, AJ?
Yeah, you definitely did. Oh, look, here's a question from one of our listeners. Kelly, if you want to learn more about this so I can feel more comfortable with the process, where can I go? And are there any classes? And he did mention earlier, Kelly, if you go to his website, which William, you want to share, he does have some opportunities to learn.
Yeah, thank you. It's sharedcrossing.com. And for you, I would just check out the Pathway course. It's our flagship course. We call it the Pathway Seminar or Workshop, and it changes the names every now and then. And we do these in weekend intensives. And we'll have one coming up in October, I think 21, 22, 23. That one is in person in Santa Barbara. But we also have one in the second weekend in November, which we're doing online. And that's it's very similar. It's just all online. So yeah, if you're going to do the Pathway, it's great because you'll learn so much about death and dying generally, and specifically about these phenomena. And then the other thing is you'll get a lot of the benefits from the course. People, we do we do research. So we're constantly checking the impact of our courses on participants. And what we've learned is that people who take our courses have a good deal of improvement in quality of life, especially around the relationship to death and dying. The other after effect I did not mention, I was remiss, is belief in an afterlife. People feel like once they see this, once they learn about the SDE, or once they have the SDE, they feel like they don't feel any fear about death. They realize that death is just a natural process and it's going to be okay. So their fear of death is alleviated almost completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could see how that would happen through an SDE or an NDE because of those experiences that occur. Would this class that you're sharing with us be something anyone would benefit from taking?
Thank you. Yeah, the course is for anyone, or the seminar is for anyone. It's for anyone who's going to die. And I will tell you that it has, that it's also, even if you work in end of life and you're very familiar with these experiences, you get a lexicon and you get a way of working with your patients and clients that way. If you're just a normal person who's going to die at some point, it's a great course because it really downloads in you language to talk about the experience, resources to share with friends, and then processes that you will go with in the course to prepare yourself for a conscious, connected, and loving end-of-life experience. And then the methods, I'll teach you how to have the SDE and other shared crossings. And we're pretty good. We're getting better. We got about 25% to 40% will actually have an SDE. And then about 80 to 90% will either have an SDE or some other type of shared crossing, which is typically an after-death experience, which would be a post-death presentation, or post-death visitation.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel that way too.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds like a class that I would love to participate in. I've found myself, I've had a lot of loss, and I've also had an NDE. I've been on both sides, and I've been definitely drawn in the last couple of years to help people through that transition. And I'm not sure what that looks like or what that feels like as of yet. I just feel a calling, if you will, to assist in some way. So I feel like that kind of a class would be beneficial to me, but also would be beneficial to someone who just wants to live better, as you say, in their human experience now. So
yeah, I'm glad that you're kind of sharing. Oh, excuse me, AJ.
No, I'm just saying it's great that it's going to help all kinds of people. The class.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your experience here, because you will have professional end-of-life workers, doulas, death doulas, who specialize in end-of-life and more the spiritual aspects of the emotional support for the whole family. They're great. They love this course.
That's where I'm headed.
Yeah. The doulas consider this to be the best part of end-of-life. We don't do the medical body care and things like that. That's important, but we don't do that. We focus on the psycho-spiritual experiences and how to have them and how to help people have them. And so the doulas love it. End-of-life volunteers love it. We get lots of hospice workers, generally, nurses, people that there's a lot of volunteers in hospice in our culture, which is beautiful. So much of hospice care happens from people who are just volunteering their services. And then the other people that I've really taken to this are just people who are conscious, baby boomers, a lot of baby boomers because they're older, and a lot of women who want to take the course because they see themselves as being a caregiver to somebody in their family, and they want to learn how to do death and dying the best they can. And so, so we have the full gamut of people.
Beautiful. I think this is just wonderful. I'm glad that all of our listeners are going to have this information. So if they're called to it, they have the resources with the backed up research and education that you do. Thank you for sharing. For those of you who aren't watching here on YouTube or Facebook, sharedcrossing.com is where you'll want to go and visit to learn more about William Peters and the work that he is doing in the classes that are offered to you. We're going to take our last break of the show. The next hour is commercial free. There's a lot more that we're going to be able to get into. So stand up, stretch. William, you too.
Yeah.
Get your body moving.
I got to take a little break here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be right back, everyone. Stay close.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hello, Wanderers, and welcome back. Tonight we are wandering with our guest, William Peters. He is the author of At Heaven's Door, What Shared Journeys to the Afterlife Teach About Dying Well and Living Better. And you are here on KGRADB.com, your number one paranormal and alternative talk network. And I'm so happy that you all are here. If you guys have been over to kgradb.com, then you know that my show is hosted there, as well as a bunch of other shows where we like to talk about all of the anomalous topics that aren't out in the world as a normal conversation. We want to know more. We want to build our big, beautiful brains. And this is a great talk radio station for you to be able to explore those topics. And there's also a members area. If you choose to join, I have a promo code for you, which is SOUL21, SOUL21. That gives you 30% off your annual membership. So if that's something you decide, that's quite a bit of savings. It's SOUL21. And then you can check out all of the members area. There's behind the scenes content, there are conference interviews. There's all kinds of good stuff that isn't right in the main area of the site. So thank you for your patience, William. We welcome you back. Did you get up and move around?
I did. I got up and moved around. I get a little tired at the end of the day here. I'm in California, so.
Yeah. So, well, and it's a long show, so it's good to get up and stretch your body. And you just got done with a run, so I'm sure you're just ready to wind down.
I am, but I'm glad to be here. So
good. talking about what you love and what you're passionate about. And we all appreciate it very much. The show goes by really quick. And before we know it, we'll be like, oh, the show's over already. It happens every time. I want to get into the more spiritual aspects of the SDEs because we all, like you said earlier, we're very familiar with NDEs and what that looks like for a lot of people. Not that they're all the same experiences, because they definitely are not. But with the SDEs, obviously they're going to be a little different from each other. And I'm sure there's a lot of, through your research, you've heard all kinds of stories, all kinds of experiences, and how they have changed people's lives. With that being said, we love stories, but I'm curious, with the SDEs, through what you've experienced, and you've also had NDEs, you have proof for yourself. You have evidence for yourself that there's an afterlife. But how do you translate that to other people, that there's more than this?
You know, when I started studying the SDE, I mean, I knew that I had my own experiences. But what was so compelling as I started putting together a typology, you know, the way this really happened was I reside in Santa Barbara, and I just, as a psychotherapist, and I just started having these groups. And the first group was called Life Beyond Death. And it was just an exploration of what happens at the end of life and specters of an afterlife. What I found was people who showed up, and I'd have like 15 to 30 people in a class, in a course that would go 8 weeks. Almost everybody who showed up had a spectacular end of life experience of some kind. So I started just jotting them down. And then the word got out in this community here that I was interested in these experiences. And after no more than a year or two, I had over 100 different types of experiences, and I was working with them, and I did a literature review and found that these stories, these types of experiences, which is called end-of-life phenomena in the medical literature and paranormal and transpersonal psychology field, or paranormal psychology, and then I've heard anomalous experiences, non-ordinary experiences. Some just call them ELLIEs, end-of-life experiences, or extraordinary end-of-life experiences. But what I'm saying to you is most of the disciplines, whether it be medical, psychological, anthropological, religious, and different spiritual traditions, had identified these phenomena, but they never really put them into a user-friendly, validating category, if you will, or a typology. So I created a typology, not just for end-of-life experiences, but specifically for the shared death experience. And when I did this, I realized, the SDE is a particular end-of-life phenomena that has a particular pattern that constellates in a particular way. And as I did this and tried it out, then we formally interviewed now over 250 people. We got another 100 plus on our waiting list, which we will get to, because now we have a staff of about 13 interns that help us process all these. So we're really rolling. People are so interested in this. And I should say, if you've got people on your in your audience who are interested in becoming a research with us as an intern, it's great. It's a great little community. We talk about this stuff inside and out, and we learn about it. So what I'm going to answer your question directly with here, AJ, is the pattern of the SDE is really profound. And we see 4 basic types of SDEs. The first type is what we call sensing at a distance. So you are not at a bedside. You're actually across town or across the other side of the world. And at or around the time of death, you will actually either sense or see the dying appear to you, and they'll say to you something like, "Thank you, I love you, goodbye." That is what we call a remote SDE.
Wow.
Sometimes the experiencer will actually tell us that at the time of death, they experienced tightness in their chest, had trouble breathing. And what they then tell us is, it was very interesting because my loved one died of a heart attack. And so we call these sympathetic SDEs because the experiencer is sharing in the perceived physical experiences of dying of the departing loved one. And we have a lot of those. And they're
incredible.
Yeah, incredible. So it really speaks to this connection across time and space. That is the first type of SDE. The second type is what we call witnessing unusual phenomena, or witnessing, observing death-related phenomena. This is when somebody actually sees or witnesses or observes phenomena that are basically related to the NDE. It's why the NDE it's the SDE phenomena as well. But for your listeners who are more familiar with the NDE, it's that most common phenomena that we see in this landscape between this life and what lies beyond. And I've identified some of those features. I'll say it again. The most common features are seeing beings of light, seeing deceased loved ones, seeing elevated spirit guides, seeing the light profound, having a life review, seeing heavenly realms, having sublime feelings, traveling upward, ascending, and running into a boundary at which you cannot go beyond. All of these experiences are, when they're observed by the experiencer, is what we call type 2 in one of our main typologies, and this is observing an unusual phenomena, unusual and death-related phenomena. The third type of SDE is what we call accompanying. In about 10% of our cases, the SDE experiencer will actually go along with the dying through the afterlife. They will essentially hitch a ride and journey along with them for some portion of the initial stages of the afterlife. They'll see all the phenomena I've already identified, but what they really appreciate is they're with the dying during this transition. They feel a connection. They feel the love. They feel like they've been gifted this special access to the afterlife. And the fourth type, which is less common, is only 6% of the time, is what we call assisted or a guiding SDE. In this situation, the experiencer feels like they've been called into the afterlife to assist the dying in their journey. And even if they had no idea how to assist the dying when they arrive there, the knowledge for how to do it arrives to them in that moment.
Wow.
So those are the four types. The pattern is absolutely spellbinding, because when I see this when I train my interns here and train others, I should say, our chief of research, Dr. Michael Kinsella, is the one who works most directly with the interns. But when I'm working with people, in different workshops, and people have these experiences, they'll invariably say, oh my gosh, my SDE fits right into type 2 or type 3 or da-da-da. They're not mutually exclusive, but they see the pattern is so profound. And this is why the American Journal of Hospice and Palliative Medicine was thrilled to accept and publish the research, because they saw the compelling nature of the pattern, which lived up to the scientific method. And so this is the evidence. This is the proof.
Big. That is big.
Yeah, huge. I mean, your audience doesn't need proof probably, but for most healthcare providers and the average Joe and Jane in the United States, they want proof, because they don't want to feel like they're a weirdo or,
right. They want the evidence.
They want the evidence, and the evidence is there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening also want evidence, right? They're curious about it, but they also want to know. They want to debunk it. They want to figure it out. They want to experience whatever that looks like. And so it's just really neat that the Western medicine side is actually listening and paying attention to this. And I feel like even there's been many shows that I've watched, but doctors who are very one-sided in the medical industry, they've even had profound experiences that they can't explain. And so it's being talked about. They're starting to open up and share, which I think is just really neat.
Yeah, you're onto something there, AJ. There was a study by the University of Chicago. I think it was in the early 2000s, maybe it was 2006 or something around there. And they studied, or they queried medical doctors' afterlife beliefs, or beliefs of what we call continuation of consciousness beyond human death. And what they found was 55% of medical doctors believed in an afterlife.
It was that high.
That high. Now,
Yeah.
the American public generally, is about 75%. And that comes out in a number of studies. The Pew study, the Pew Research Institute, does a study on afterlife beliefs, a series of beliefs, actually, spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, what have you, about every decade. And they come in at about 70 to 80% almost every time for the last 40 years. There's a very little shift in that.
Those percentages are so much higher than I would have even imagined.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this tells us something. I mean, I think the lowest that the Pew came in at was maybe 68%, maybe. But my recollection is most of them around
quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're 2/3 for sure of the American public. The issue we have here, AJ, is that when people believe in an afterlife, it really doesn't tend to be very evolved or thought out. In other words, they just believe it. It's usually kind of a religious view or a spiritual, maybe something taught to them, or maybe just a wishful thinking. But it doesn't have. It's not. No one really has done a lot of personal research or thought about it. At least a small percentage has done that, but the vast majority, it's just kind of a shallow belief. Well, what we see is for people that study our research, and certainly for experiencers when after they have an experience will say, I know there's an afterlife. I've been there, and it's more real than this life, than the human life. And so when those people, those experiencers talk to their friends and family and tell people what it's about and what they saw, a lot of people are, transformed by those conversations. We call that the benign virus. If you learn about the SDE or the NDE and you start hearing more and more about it, then you get to be a believer, because you know that your good friend or your spouse is a reasonable person. And if he or she says that, then you're like, wow, okay, if he or she believes that and she's very reasonable, then I too am going to do a little research and see if what she says is right. And you can do a fair amount of study and research now. I mean, one of the things that like I said, for the SDE, there's only 2 general public books out on it. There's Raymond Moody's book in 2010 called Glimpses of Eternity, and then my book in 2022, where it's far more research than Raymond's book. Raymond's is a collection of stories and some general theories, which is great. But my book really goes in for the general public and lays out all the different phenomena, all the different types. And you see 28 stories that are so compelling. And, I had a very good team of editors help me write this. So it's done in a way that's very accessible. And I've had people that are just, friends of family who have said they just read the book because it was me who wrote it. They didn't have any interest in the afterlife, and they came away saying, oh my gosh, I'm a believer. So anyway, that's just
influence.
Yeah. That's just to say that I think those of us, I said this at the beginning of the interview, but anybody who's an a scholar, not a scholar in end of life, does the research, does their own research, studies it. We all believe there's a continuation of consciousness beyond human death. There's nobody who looks at these experiences and doesn't think that there's an afterlife.
Right.
You have some of the more tight-lipped, a little bit straight-laced academics who say, well, I think the evidence supports the notion, but it can't prove it. well, that's fine. You don't have to prove it, but the propensity of the evidence suggests an afterlife more than it does the alternative, which is that there's not one.
Yeah. Oh gosh, this is just so neat. Okay. The book that we're talking about is the book that William Peters wrote. It's called At Heaven's Door, What Shared Journeys to the Afterlife Teach Us About Dying Well and Living Better. And there it is up there on the screen. Thank you, Chanel. I like the cover.
Thank you. I like the cover
Catches
too.
my attention.
Yeah. Yeah, it does stand out in bookstores, which is what covers are supposed to do for books.
Yes. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I have to give that to Simon & Schuster's artistic team. They really did a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but if it stands out like that, you can't help but pick it up and see what it's all about.
Yeah. And it's funny, when the book first came out, Barnes and Nobles had it featured in and I went into one of the local, it was on that first desk or first table
when you walked in.
Yeah. And I, my friends were sending me photos. One was in Kuala Lumpur and sent a photo of it. And the reason I'm sharing it is because it was such a different color that it actually, they like to put it out on the table because it kind of brought attention to other books there. It was purely a sales marketing move. But then the book started, selling pretty well because people liked the subject matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're all curious, right? We're all curious about dying. We're all curious about even living and what that looks like and what our purpose is here and why we're here in general. Through all of your research and your own experiences, have you found that answer? Like, are we here for a reason? Do we have a purpose, or do we come here with a purpose, or do we find that through our experience? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I'll answer that in the research, because I was remiss in not mentioning the fifth profound after effect of the SDE, and that is that people return from their experience with a renewed sense of purpose and meaning in their life. So there's something about touching into the afterlife that awakens them to the purpose of this life. So generally speaking, what we see is people come back and they're more altruistic. They're less focused on their self, more focused on being loving and kind, more focused on things like alleviating human suffering. They become more integrous. In other words, they'll be more honest in their relationships. What we see, and this is kind of maybe an unfortunate side effect, is that people, I think the research on NDEs is that after you have an NDE, about 70% of the persons will end up ending their primary relationship because the change is too much and the relationship can't metabolize that level of change in their partner. Or the partner who's changed wants something more or different. And so that's sad. That's a sad after effect, but it's for the better. The cost of evolving is that we have more of a desire to be with people who share our beliefs, who want to become more conscious, and we want to be with like-minded people to live more in integrity. So it's part of that. But you asked another question. Oh, yes. So people come back with a renewed life and purpose. And what we see is changes in primary relationships, changes in work and profession, and changes in the way people spend their time.
Yep.
They tend to be more focused on using their time in a more engaged way rather than a more passive way.
Yes. Yep. I can see how all of those things would be accurate.
Yeah. Thank you.
With you did bring up earlier, actually, if someone came to you and was saying, what are the things that I can do in this life to prepare for the end of it. Like you did bring up like living in gratitude and tying up loose ends and forgiveness and all of those things. But if someone were literally on death's door and they didn't have that time to invest, what are some ways that you would share with them? What things would you say to them to help them feel more at peace and comfort with their end of life experience?
Well, the truth of the matter is that you can't really prepare for end of life in the last moments of your life. I think this is a cultural imperative that if we're going to die consciously, we need to prepare for it. And that doesn't mean that you can't have radical transformations at the end of life. A lot of people do. But my suggestion is begin, if you haven't already, a spiritual practice of some kind. And that can be meditation, that can be prayer, that can be yoga, Tai Chi, walking in nature. And the reason why is we found that about 2/3 of our SDE experiencers had some sort of mindfulness practice. Now, it's hard to do a direct link correlate to it because a lot of people have mindfulness practices who never had SDEs. But we do know that that 2/3 of those who have them do indeed disclose to us that they had or have a mindfulness practice. So that is one way that you can help. And I say when people are get a diagnosis or are elderly, I think calming the mind, calming the body. So I think anything you can do to remove the stress and strain in your life. Now, as you do that, you'll realize there are some aspects of your life that are unfinished and you'll want to go back and address those, make amends with yourself, with other people who you might have had some disagreements with. And then also with God. I mean, there's a lot of things I see. People will not realize that they're upset in their life. And if they grew up in a religious tradition, they'll say, oh, I'm just angry at God. I just think this life's so unfair and I've suffered so much. And that makes sense. I mean, I would fall into that category of level of pain and suffering. And that at times I'm like, what is all this about? Come on. So angry at life. And it really helps if you can at least touch into that upset and breathe with it and label it. I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm upset. I feel betrayed. I feel sad about that. I feel regret here. All of this, if you can label it, be with it, create space around it, and then eventually let it go and say, I give this feeling up to the universe because I don't need to hold it anymore. Those are all beautiful experiences, beautiful ways of doing healing practices that will inevitably create a better end of life experience and hold out the probability of a shared crossing experience.
Yeah, I love that you brought all of that up because I feel like even if you weren't knocking on the door per se, those are great practices to have in general, just to have a better life experience.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, couldn't agree more, AJ. Yeah, and this is why people come back after having these experiences and say, I'm going to get a meditation practice. I'm going to get a mindfulness practice. I'm going to sit on that cushion the way I always wanted to. and now I'm doing it,
I do want to talk more about your book, but we'll do that here in a minute. I'm curious though, through your research, do you find people who have had SDEs, who were maybe atheists or they didn't believe in God, come on the other side of that? And if so, Well, first of all, answer that, and then I'll ask you the next question. I'm really good at just going on and on and on.
Yeah,
I get
it's a great question. So you're asking if agnostics and atheists and people who disbelieve and say the afterlife or the continuation of consciousness beyond human death,
right,
if they're transformed by the experience. And the answer to that is yes.
Always.
Well, you know,
Are some people in denial?
Yeah, almost always. I mean, it's the people that we interview. They will say that this experience led them to believe, or no, not just believe, know that there's an afterlife. They experienced it. It was more real than real, more real than real, and more real than the human existence. And they know there's an afterlife.
Oh, go ahead.
That's fine.
I was just going to say, do you believe that people have those experiences who are going down a path of just I say emptiness, maybe for lack of a better word, but not having a belief in a creator. They are put in these experiences to have a renewal of faith or a lesson in faith, and to have a different experience in their human journey. Do you believe in stuff like that? Like,
well, I don't
know if I'm asking the question correctly.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying
in my head.
Do you think I think what you're asking, AJ, is that do people have the SDE who kind of need it to wake them up to
through whatever form, if some path they were just put on to have that experience, to change the course of their direction, if you will?
I think there could be some of that. But, you know, I mean, there's a whole body of research in past life regression and between life regression. It was more put forth by the Michael Newton Institute and all those regressionists. And they tend to say that people make life plans, and when you know, in the pre-birth planning state, which happens in the before life, between the space between lives, and there's some of that, like, you know, these kind of gates, and like if you don't do certain things, they're going to wake you up somehow, and I think the SDE could serve as a wake up. The NDE certainly does as well, but I can't say for sure, you know. I do think we get, if we're asking for the universe or God or whatever, our spirit guides, to help us out, and it all, you know, say like, you know, I need help with this, then maybe they'll give you an experience like an SDE or an NDE to wake you up, to point you in a direction that you're asking for. Have I seen that? Not in my research, but I know that a lot of past life regressionists will assert that this web of life includes that.
Yeah. That's kind of why I've asked, because I've heard all different viewpoints and all different beliefs. And I like to ask questions to people on every side of the spectrum, because we all have a different experience and opinion. Do you hear of any stories that become like synchronistic through your research? Do you have...
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did you go... I'm really good at running on, so just go ahead if you have an answer for that.
Well, when you say synchronistic, what do you mean?
Well, that's where I was hoping to head. I just know that, well, how can I put this? There are people who have reported before, like weeks or even days leading up to their death, have seen loved ones who have passed, or angels, if you will, the visiting, or things like that.
Those are pre-death visions or visitations. Those are on in my spectrum of end-of-life experiences. That's one of the things I saw coming up quite a bit. There's a good deal of research on these pre-death visions, visitations, which are often also referred to as end-of-life dreams or visions. Synchronistic, I actually just think that the dying is seeing their departed loved ones in the afterlife. That's all it is. I don't think it's a synchronicity. I mean, synchronicities are a little bit different in my research. It's like if you see the same bird at your window every day, that's, it's wintertime and you've got cardinals showing up and tapping on your window and it's getting your attention, you may consider that could be a relative of yours who's coming to give you a message or wants you to know that they're around.
Mm-hmm.
Those are synchronicities that get my attention.
Right.
And we collect those in our research too. The other synchronicities that you may be referring to here, AJ, are like, digital displays present key dates in the person's life, birth dates, anniversaries, family reunions, that type of synchronistic event that's displayed electronically is pretty compelling. And we also hear people say things like music, I'll never forget somebody telling me that they were driving home from a trip, a long drive, and they were thinking about their father who had died a few weeks previous. And the person said, just send me a sign. I just want to know that you're alive and well somewhere. Well, then a song came on the radio and it was his father's favorite song.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. And then he said, then another song comes on and it's his father's second favorite song.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, if this song comes on, then I know it's my father. And that song came on. So those are strong synchronicities.
Right.
And they happen, they build faith in people, faith in a good way, not in a spiritual way, a sense of knowing. I know that's my father. He's here communicating with me. And then, of course, at the same time as those movies, that music comes on, they also will report feeling, truth bumps or the shivers that come across the body, the energetic experience that lets people know that the goosebumps, that this is something happening here. There's truth happening here.
Right. Oh, I love that. Thanks for reading my mind. Sometimes I get so ahead of myself with what I want to ask, and then it doesn't come out right. How I got in this position is beyond me, but here we are. Sometimes I just want to know everything, and it just doesn't come out the way that I need it to in order to make sense. But it also led me to another question is, are we supported from our loved ones who have recently crossed, or even, not so recently, like coming to visit us from the other side? Like, hey, I've arrived to wherever this is and I'm good. I know you've brought it up a couple of times, but with your research, is that a common thing? Do we get validation from those who have crossed over that they're good?
Absolutely. I mean, there's different types of validation here. So we just talked about pre-death visions and visitations.
Mm-hmm.
What the dying typically see, and what the loved one caregivers tend to observe with their dying as they're communicating to the beings on the other side, is that these are deceased relatives that are recognized as being deceased and were close family or friends to the dying. And that it seems that these beings are coming to prepare the dying for their journey home. Mm-hmm. And crossing over death and dying. And it gives both the dying and the caregiver loved ones a sense of peace and comfort, knowing that there are loved ones on the other side who are there to help the dying with their journey home. Mm-hmm. So there's that one experience there. We also see, as I said before, many times during the SDE, the experiencer will say that, oh, well, as my mother was dying, I saw her get greeted by her mother. I saw her sister who had predeceased greet her. So they really are able to line up these key relationships as being there as part of the greeting party, as we call it. Now, when you get into the post-death phenomena, the dying after they've died will appear typically at the foot of the bed or a little bit elevated, and they will look younger. They will look more vital. They will not be having any of the appearances that they did as they were dying, because now they're fully healthy in mind. And they usually come with a very specific message. And the message is, hey, I'm alive and well. I love you. And maybe a specific thing about, you might want to look for that key there, or that picture you're looking for, it's over here. Or they do come with messages of support and help.
Yeah, that is so neat. They often say that the veil is so thin between us and the afterlife. What is the afterlife to you, in your opinion? Where is it that we go?
Well, I mean, I think we go to a different energetic frequency. I think we're all energetic beings. And my sense is that when you're embodied, our energy body is weighed down by our physical body. And that creates a different type of reality. It creates a material reality, which we're all living in. So you see, dirt, and I'm looking outside my window right now. I'm seeing lots of trees, lots of leaves. We all live in these houses that are made of, material that's concrete and wood. So we live in a material world. When you cross over, or you have a shared death experience or near-death experience, and you drop that physical body, your frequency goes way up. And as your frequency goes up, you go into another dimension. And that dimension can have, my experience of going to these dimensions is that they're a lot lighter. There's a lot more light in the beings. The structures are a lot lighter. There's still a lot of beauty, physical beauty. Unfortunately, when a lot of people go into that afterlife space, they feel a little jarred by it, and they don't know how to make sense of it. Mm-hmm. So it helps to get a good deal of preparation to know what it's like. And that's why I think doing some reading is quite helpful. There's a good deal of research out there that people can read about to know how to experience these afterlife spaces better, and to know who you'll greet there and what's possible.
So much, right? It's infinite.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Definitely. So you decided to write this book at Heaven's Door. Was that something that you've always wanted to do, or did that just come along with the research?
Great question. I never really wanted to write a book, honestly. I kind of wanted to write a book, but I didn't want to go through the hassle of writing a book. And this book took a lot of effort. But I had a really good working relationship with Simon & Schuster and others on our team that really helped get this done. So my real reason for writing the book is simple. I wanted to take the most compelling cases, at least some of them, put them into a general public format. So not ensconced in, medical research or academic research. That's hard to read. But to tell stories, to provide typologies, to affirm people, to share the benefits, that these experiences are so healing for people, that I wanted to do all that. I wanted to sincerely offer people a great resource that they could read themselves or use or give to a friend who was about to die.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. There are so many people that will benefit, and obviously already have, from the efforts that you have taken to create this piece of work. It looks like there's a comment from Knight Rider that happened when his father passed away. He appeared to him in a vivid dream. He showed me wounds that had healed. That's
beautiful. And we see that when people appear either in the SDE or in an afterlife, a post-death vision or visitation, they appear healthy, younger, vital, and happy. And that's very encouraging to the experiencer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Another share, my sister, who was the caregiver for both mom and dad, my sister realized he was talking to some family members and some family friends that had passed years before.
Beautiful. Yeah, if your listeners, especially those who are making comments, have experiences, kindly please go to our sharedcrossing.com website, and you can you can find, I think it's Discover, and you can offer your story there. There's a whole template. There's like 8 questions. You can answer it pretty quickly, and then someone on our research team will get back to you.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you guys are just interviewing so many people because, one, like we said, people are talking about it more and people are wanting to connect more and they're wanting to share those stories. And some of them are probably just so deep in trying to figure out what they experienced, and having other people who've experienced similar things is probably very comforting.
It sure is. We all like to be mirrored and affirmed for our experiences, and this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about 10, 12 minutes before we have to close up for tonight. And I know your book's full of different stories, including your own. And earlier in the show, you said you had 2 near-death experiences, and one you had shared and one you said you would maybe share later. Are you open to sharing that with us now?
Yeah, I can share my second NDE. It happened when I was about 30 years old. Let me think. Was that about 30 years old. And I just came down with a rare blood disease called idiopathic thrombocytopenia. It's a low platelet condition and in danger of bleeding out, drowning in your blood, so to speak.
Wow.
I went into the ER and in the afternoon, and I woke up in the middle of the night on the ceiling of the ICU, listening to nurses at the nursing station talk about the patients. I was a free-form consciousness, if you will, moving down the hall of the 10th floor of Kaiser Hospital, Oakland, and listening to conversations and janitors or night staff and what have you. I was very much at peace, very calm. I didn't even realize I had a body in that room, in that floor. I was just hanging out. And just like I said, an observing self, a witness, and a consciousness that had no identification or tether to a physical body. I later heard the nurses talking about somebody in bed 3 that was a healthy 30-year-old. They didn't know why he was there with this rare blood disease, but he was in danger of dying. I looked over at that person. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's me. That was me. That is me." So I had a connection with it when I saw myself and heard the story. But other than that, without that reminder, I would not have known. So that was my SDE, and it really taught me that I'm not my body. Whatever I call myself, I am a consciousness, a spirit, soul that has a life beyond this human body.
Fascinating. And
Yeah.
I've heard that people who have had one NDE or now an SDE, and also I should say, will have them more than once in their lifetime.
I think that's a true statement, AJ. I mean, our research is really interesting. Our first round of research, we collected 167 cases. But what was stunning about it, actually, I said it right, 164 cases, 107 of those, but we had 107 experiencers. So that means that there were, something like 60 some odd cases in which they were experienced as a second or third SDE by the person, and maybe more, So yeah, it seems like these are gateway experiences that open up the capacity to have more of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had probably a couple dozen SDEs, but of course I've had 2 near-death experiences. I had multiple SDEs when I was working in Zen Hospice. And now when I'm working with people, I will have them. It's so funny. I just had one this morning because a family member was dying, and I showed up just as they had already died. But I walked into the room and I'm in, whoa, I can feel these guys up above. I can feel the person who died. I can feel other family members who, one of which I knew, other two I'd heard of but didn't know of, and I could just sense and feel them. Well, that's the type of shared death experience that's actually quite similar to the one I shared earlier in this interview when I had in Peru, where it was just this sense of presences that are there, and they're loving and they're kind, and you feel them. And because you walk into another room and I'm not going to feel that, you know? And so I really got a sense for that. Now, it was a very short experience. There was no other phenomena. But the reason why someone might say to me and has said to me, well, aren't you kind of making this stuff up? Because, you know, like you're highly imaginative, you're highly creative. and I said, well, you know what? I said, and I even, you know, I'm pretty hard on myself, you know, not hard, but I'm critical and skeptical. I said to myself, well, could I be making that up? No, not really. And the reason why is because this experience that I was experiencing was not what I would have expected. Mm-hmm. I was like taken back by the fact that who was there, what the experience of that dying person was. It was not what I thought they would experience. They were far more subdued than I thought they would be at the reunion with some of their loved ones. So I was like, oh, they're being greeted, but they're not as happy and content as I thought. They're not unhappy, they're content, but they're confused a little bit. They're a little bit confused by what's going on. And as I think about it, I understand why, but I wasn't anticipating. So this was a vision into something that was getting my attention in a way that was different than what I would have anticipated. And I couldn't make that up.
Right. And I'm sure that, I mean, with every experience, you have to wonder, like, wow, was that real? Did what I had just experienced, like, could I have just had a wild imagination? Could I have dreamed it? Because it's just so out there, right? Because it's out of our norm. It's out of our human norm for us to have those experiences.
Yeah. You know, let me, in our closing moments here, share an experience I think your listeners will appreciate. My father died about 2 years ago, and I was at bedside with him, with my mother and my sister. And I'm with people dying quite a bit, at least historic pre-COVID, I was with a lot more, but now it's coming back. And what I do is I usually put my hand on the person's body, usually at some sort of pulse somewhere. And then I start matching my breath to their breath. And then I just kind of allow my mind to go. I get into a meditative, very connective state, very embodied. And I ask in what way can I help? Is there anything that I can offer? Just allow me to be of service, use my energy and my being to support this transition. Well, as I was doing this, I popped. Now, I didn't pop anywhere. Actually, that's not the right term. I saw in the corner over my father's feet, my grandmother and aunt. And I thought, oh my gosh, there they are. I hadn't seen them in 20 years. And I thought, wow, there they are. And then I saw my grandfather, who I never met in my life. He died before me. And my grandfather was very exuberant, which kind of fit his personality. And he ran over. He was trying to get my mother's attention to thank him for her having been such a good wife to my father for 50 some odd years. And then I know I felt other family members in the distance and other of my father's friends, really from childhood. He had a close friends of childhood from his school he went to. So I was feeling all this, and then I had to ask, why aren't you taking him? Why aren't they taking? I could see some light coming down, like a stairway of light, cascade of light. Saying, I know he's going to travel up that light. I've seen this before, but why isn't anyone taking him? And then all of a sudden, my grandmother and aunt diverted their attention or averted their attention and got me to look over the top of my father. And I'm like, oh, you want me to look over there? So I moved my attention. And when I looked over the top of my father's bed, I go, oh my God, I felt this presence there that I couldn't see, but was a huge energetic force. And I got it. It was this being in the spirit realm that I call the conductor. That is the force that's in charge of conducting or managing the movement of a soul spirit into the afterlife. Anyway, it's a real profound presence. and it's called the conductor. And so I got to feel that. I want to leave that with your listeners, because that happens. There is a force that conducts our soul spirits from our human bodies into the benevolent afterlife.
Okay, so that's interesting to me. I've read of other NDEs. I understand that was an SDE, but an NDEs where they've reported that they had this conductor that you bring up, but not in that terminology, but they had a guide with them, greet them, and take them through this experience.
Yes. And they've even said it's not your time.
Okay. So through my NDE, I didn't have one guide. I don't even know how many. It felt infinite. The whole room was lit up. It wasn't even a path or a tunnel. It was an entire room, but I could see silhouettes of beings.
Beautiful.
And it was, I mean, beyond beautiful, right? There's so many, it was ineffable. There's just no words for it. But it also wasn't even, I've been told that you get a choice. Like, do you want to stay? Or it wasn't like that for me. It was, this isn't your time. Like you said, it's not your time, and you're going to go back to this body, and it's going to be really hard, but you have a purpose here, and this is what it is. And anyway, it goes from there. And I was shared in detail, and it was very surreal afterwards, because it wasn't even on my radar for what they were telling me was what my life was going to be like. I wasn't even in that mindset direction or anything. I didn't even think about anything that they had shared with me. But yet here I am doing what I've been asked to do. And I have just really intensely enjoyed hearing other people's experiences, because for a long time I just thought I was nuts and that I had this really crazy dream. And it becomes more and more real through the synchronicities and through the experience that I've had that have validated that my experience was not that. And so it's like people like you and the people who are sharing their stories with your research that you're able to share with all of us, that put themselves out there in such a way I just find so profoundly beautiful, and so grateful that people are speaking up and really sharing what they are experiencing. Is bringing us closer together where we can have these topics about living, and we can have our conversations about living and have these conversations about dying just as easily. And I think it takes great courage to do both, to have both of those conversations, and for people like you to show up and provide that space for us to do so is a blessing to all of us. And I think it's just fantastic that that's the way that you have chosen to live your life and show up for all of us and in that way. And wow, just so much gratitude for you, William. Thank you so much for showing up the way that you have. I do want to make sure before we close, we have a couple of minutes. So your websites, how people can find your book, and one more time on how they can join the program that you shared with us earlier.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So everything that I've talked about can be found on sharedcrossing.com. You can see our programs. The one program that we're offering now is our flagship program. We offer other programs throughout the year, but this one is the Pathway. And like I said, this is the program where you can learn how to have a shared death experience or a shared crossing experience. And it's a beautiful experience. It's an intensive. You'll go into an altered space of sorts during this time, and it's transformative. People say after the workshop, I don't even need to have an SDE. I've been transformed by this workshop already. We do a lot of guided visualizations, a lot of choreographing of people's end of life, and it's quite deep work. And people love it, and they connect. So, and if you can do it with a loved one or a friend, that's even better, because then you can practice these methods and exercises after the group is over. And yeah, so sharecrossing.com for that. The book you can find anywhere. The publisher's great, Simon & Schuster. So you can just look for it. You can go to Amazon, go to your local bookstore if you can. It's always great to support a local bookstore. The other thing you might want to consider is if you're interested in our research, please, send an email to info@sharedcrossing.com, info@sharedcrossing.com, and our research team will respond. And I had one other thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, if you've had a story, 2 beautiful stories I saw by people that you brought up to our attention, AJ, one in particular. But if you could share your story with our research team, you go to Discover, and or just go to our website, sharedcrossing.com, and you'll find your way there. Go to the contact page or to the Discover tab, and you'll find it. You'll find sharing your stories. The other thing I want to say is if you want to hear more firsthand stories, we didn't even share any of these today. I mean, in video form, because sometimes I'll give a presentation and I'll show a video from our research. We have hundreds of videos of people sharing their SDEs. We have a story library that you can find on our website, and
Awesome.
and you can see 5-10 minute firsthand SDEs. They're so compelling and beautiful.
That's my favorite. I love the stories. I'm
Yes.
glad that you have those up there. Now I'm going to have to deep dive onto your website some more.
Yeah, you can go there because you can get those stories there, and they're great. But like I said, the book gives a lot more context because we're trying to really let people know who these people are and why they're having the story, why they're having the experience.
Awesome. This is so good. Again, thank you so much, William. I know it's a long show and I appreciate your time. We've all wanted to hear about this, so it's just fantastic. It's been a joy to have you here once again, and best wishes to you and all of your projects in the future.
Thank you, AJ. Pleasure to be on your show. And thank you for doing what you're doing, because your message and what you're bringing to your audience is so needed, tapping into our spiritual sides of ourselves. We all need to live more there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't the world be a better place?
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, William. And to all of you, my listeners, thank you for participating tonight. You guys have been awesome. Don't forget to share your stories with William. He'd love to hear about him, like he said. And I guess this is a wrap. Next week, I'd love to have you guys join us for another live show. We'll be visiting with Todd Wilcox. He's known as the Slipstream Shaman, and he'll take us on a journey into the quantum field as he discusses how you can learn to use your natural abilities in quantum healing. So we'll see you all next week. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. Good night.